Canada's global playbook and Mark Carney's power move, you're not going to want to miss this because this really has a direct impact on the tariffs between the United States and Canada, the ongoing strength of the U.S. dollar, and trade relations with one of our most powerful and maybe one of our best allies, our neighbors to the north, right there in Canada. And of course, if it affects us right here in the United States and Canada, it affects everyone throughout the Anglosphere. So you're not going to want to miss this episode.
There isn't a lot of evidence that any country has gotten a deal without U.S. tariffs, Carney said. His first admission that Trump tariffs on Canada might be here to stay.
They want to break us so they can own us.
A change in tone from Carney, who'd promised an elbows-up negotiation to end all tariffs, a shifting position that's not sitting well with groups that represent Canadian workers.
Normalization of tariffs will have, I guarantee you, an impact on the Canadian economy. It will have an impact on jobs.
The latest Trump threat? A 35% tariff on all goods not covered by our existing free trade deal.
So you may ask yourself a basic question: why on earth is Canada showing up in global financial circles? This relationship that worked with the United States and Canada for so long is all of a sudden under a tremendous amount of stress. And instead of trying to iron out the wrinkles between our relationship, it appears as though Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, is really working on his relationships inside the EU and with the global banking elite. And it's going to impact everybody throughout the United States and Canada.
U.S. President Donald Trump showing no signs of backing down from his tariff agenda, as old complaints about Canada surface again, adding to the already tense relationship.
Canada is not open to us. They need to open their market. Unless they're willing to open their market, they're going to pay a tariff.
And most of all, it can impact the power of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency of the world. So there is a global shift taking place, and you want to pay close attention to this because Mark Carney is not just a Canadian banker. He is the former head of the Bank of Canada, and he understands finances really, really well. The guy is no joke. He's super intelligent, and maybe most of all, he's super connected back to Europe and, of course, the European power elites, particularly in the financial systems. Now, you may ask yourself the question, what's the big deal? We have the U.S. dollar, but I'm here to say that Canada is one of the wealthiest nations in the world when it comes to natural resources. And number two, they share the largest border on the planet with the United States, and it's been a demilitarized border. In other words, we have super good relationships with our neighbors to the north. So any kind of a wrinkle in trade policy, wrinkles in immigration policy, concerns about drugs flowing from one place to the other, and of course, jobs and the flow of money, they all mean something much more important and maybe amplified by 10. And if you understand what we're talking about, hit like not so much that you are liking the channel as much as you're liking what you're hearing and you recognize the importance of this moment in history, because we are not too far off from having a major showdown with our neighbors to the north.
The devastation is mounting. We've had thousands of job losses, 30% drop in production.
The new looming tariff deadline, August 1st, dragging out negotiations that Carney had originally hoped to have done by the G7 in June, and then by July 21st. But so far, no deal, despite compliments.
You're a transformational president.
And concessions, like not retaliating against Trump's 50% steel and aluminum tariff.
Canada may be a smaller country to our north and definitely less populated, but make no question about it, Mark Carney and Canada can punch way above their weight. They've got a lot to say, and they have a lot of leverage with the United States. And maybe, just maybe, Trump's rhetoric makes everything a little bit worse because for a while he had belittled people inside of Canada. He had belittled Canadian leadership in Trudeau. And maybe the scariest part about it, he even threw out ideas about making Canada the 51st state. Now, of course, nobody really believes Donald Trump would make Canada the 51st state, but I think this is a reference to possibly having a seamless border between the United States and Canada. And maybe that's his ideal situation, and maybe, just maybe, there's an opportunity for give and take here that we don't quite see.
No, see, that's silly. We have a plan called USMCA, US-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Virtually 75% of all goods coming from Mexico and Canada already come in tariff-free.
Canada has carve-outs for some tariffs related to the auto sector, border security, and fentanyl, covering goods that are compliant with the current free trade deal. As the U.S. suggests that will remain the case.
So it's really important that we get things ironed out with the Canadians, and particularly Mark Carney, because the fact is that there really is nothing to gain by having a bad relationship with Canada, number one. And secondly, as Canada continues to push forward and maybe explores other options beyond trading with the United States, other U.S. allies could conceivably follow, and that's not good for the United States. And in honest, it's not good for anybody, particularly our allies and the Canadians. The dollar is still dominant. We know that, but we also know that dollar-priced transactions really do mean that the U.S. reserve currency, dollar, has a lot of punching power right now. But anytime that our allies are undermining the punching power of that dollar, well, it's not good for us. It's not good for anybody. And so take a look here at a couple things here that I think you'll find interesting. So here are a couple of what-if scenarios with the United States and Canada trade, and I think these are the best-case scenarios on one side, and of course, the worst-case scenarios on another. And I don't expect worst-case scenarios to be experienced, and I don't know if best-case scenarios will be worked out either, but we know that to have a really good relationship with Canada, we must have one that's based on respect, and that means respect for one another, respect for our boundaries, respect for our trade, respect for the U.S. dollar, respect about immigration policy, respect about drugs not flowing into the United States, and of course, respect for the Canadian government and its officials, because the senseless rhetoric really is no good for anyone. Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to the Economic Report. Make sure you've liked and subscribed, because these are delivered on a daily basis, and maybe more importantly, they are live on a daily basis, and they also have shorts that are designed for people just like you. Remember, folks, stay healthy, take care of yourself, because your health really matters and it affects every other aspect of your life. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same channel, same place.